Alright, you guys, so this was a video kind of inspired by a couple friends telling me that they didn't know how to use Schematica, and I realized that a lot of people might not either. So if you found this video or were linked to this video, then you are trying to set up Schematica and you might not know how. So let's get into what Schematica is good for, and then I'll show you guys how to use it. So you can pull up a schematic and then you can just select whatever you want. In this example, I'll be showing my 1280 furnace array, which will be linked in the description below. A little bit of a shameless plug for you guys, but this is the perfect example of a design that's really kind of complicated. I do have a tutorial for it as well, but if you wanted to build this, I'd highly recommend just making a schematic of it and then building it. And then you can overlay the blueprint and then set it up wherever you want. So if I wanted to come down to the ground and like move it here, you can have it be exactly where you want, and then you can build it as you wish. And it's extremely useful for this. You can even do things like make it just layers, go up one at a time, build everything you need, and it overlays this nice fine blueprint, and it's awesome. So let's immediately get into kind of the tricky bit. So you guys can skip past this. I'll put a time on the screen when we start of how to install it, but for those of you who don't know, let's get started. Alright, so for this bit, I will be completely uninstalling Schematica. So if you don't know how to get to your .minecraft folder, you can just right click here, search, or do run, whatever. Do percent appdata%. That'll bring you to this file right here. Look for your .minecraft folder. I highly recommend right clicking this and then pinning it to quick access like I have, because I go to my .minecraft folder quite a bit. This is where you get your resource packs, your saves folders, it's everything. And so once you know how to get there, you can kind of start the rest of the process. So I have 3 tabs already linked here. I simply Googled Schematica. Schematica 1.12. And right here, it's right on curseforge.com. If it moves, then I'll try to update this in the description. Just tell me in the comments below, but that shouldn't apply to any time near after this video. So, requirements are Minecraft Forge and Lunitaria's Core. For Schematica, you just need to simply download it, download Lunitaria's Core, and install Forge. And I'm going to actually uninstall these right now and kind of show you guys how to do that. So let me just uninstall Forge just like that, completely delete it. And for my mods, I'm not going to uninstall these, and you'll see why. So, if you want Forge, I guess you can just go to the latest version for 1.12. I think this is for 1.12. Alright, we're going with download recommended. Please wait a few seconds. Alright, so you get a screen like this, and this will just go to your downloads folder, which is on my hard drive. Click save, open it up. If you have Java installed, which you probably should for Minecraft, it should pull up something. I think it's loading. Alright, so I think my hard drive had to spin up. So, oh, see, there it goes. Yeah, it opened it twice. So, once it installs, you are not a server, and you don't want to extract it. These both are not, if you're a server owner and you want it for your server, then install for server, and then you can, like, upload that to your world. You are a client. So all you want to do is just click OK. And that should be just about it. Yeah, that's it. It's completely installed. So then it'll just go into your versions, and whenever you open Minecraft, you should have an option for it right here, 1.12 Forge, or if you don't know how to do that, you can go to Launch Options, Add New, and then here are all of your versions. And then right down here at the bottom should be where Forge is. So you can just select whichever Forge version you want, and then just kind of save it down here, go to News, and it should be an option for you right in here. So now you got Forge. Great. What are you going to do with Schematica? Well, you simply just download it. So when you download Schematica, it's even easier. You can do the same thing with Lunitaria's Core. Just get them both installed. Previously I tried to open it up, but I was kind of corrected by myself. When you have both of these, all you want to do is drag it into your mods folder. If you've never done this before, you might not have a mods folder. All you got to do is just right click, new folder, name it mods, all lowercase, and it'll work for you just fine. And then in this mods folder, you can actually label it in a couple different ways. You can just go ahead and drop all of your files in here. They'll look like this, and they'll be for different versions. See, these are for 1.12, these are for 1.11.2. But if you want to keep these all in place, but for different versions, just label 1.11.2, 1.12, 1.12.1, 1.10, whatever version you're playing on. In this case, we're in 1.12. So all you got to do is drop Lunitaria's Core in there, drop Schematica in there, and then just start Forge, and it should work completely fine. A little bit of a bonus thing, if you drop the Optifine executable jar file in here, it'll work completely fine, so you can run Optifine and Forge at the same time. So I don't know about your systems, but this always likes to take a while for me, so let's make a little cut. Alright, so if you did everything perfectly, you should have Schematica. You should be able to go under mods, and then you should be able to see Lunitarius Core and Schematica. You should be able to configure it and then have all these options, and you should be good to go. So let's log back into our world and then go into how to set Schematica up, because this is actually what started the conversation with the guys I was talking to, where they found that Schematica was a little tricky and unintuitive. The first thing I recommend you do is go to options and then controls and go all the way down. Schematica will have a bunch of options right here. So one of the things that I actually found a little bit surprising is the fact that printer and rendering by default don't actually have any kind of they don't have any setting. I always used to set these to P and R for rendering, but my sprint key is R, so I use V because it's just convenient for me. And then you can do you can do next layer and previous layer. I like to do these as my left and right. Oops. I like to do these as my left and right arrow keys, and that is extremely convenient for reasons I'll show you in a second. So, let's hop back on the ground here and pull up my example of the furnace array. Alright, so this might be a little cut in here, but that's because I only remembered to do this until after the actual tutorial. So, a couple of my friends just reminded me that I never actually showed how to make a schematic, and that's kind of an important thing, because I've only showed you guys how to use schematics. Well, how do you make one in the first place? And it's super simple, guys, don't worry about it. So, we use the divide key to load schematics, the subtract key to edit your schematic. To make a new schematic, mine is the star key or the multiplication key. You can set blue points and red points, and what somebody pointed out is the fact that this is by default off. This is actually rendering the schematic. So if you actually turn that on, you can see the little red box, you can see where it goes, and I think this is the corner of the build. No, you can edit that with this. Get that into the corner of the building. Let's fly up to the top here and get our blue in place. So I don't think on servers it stops you like it just did for me, but it's super convenient in single player so that I can get the entire house in there. And then to save it, you can just go to, I don't know, house and save. And then it might take a little time depending on how big that is, but then you can just render your schematic over here. And there you go. If you want to take it a step further and edit your schematics folder, well, let's cut to the other screen for that. Alright, so back to our .minecraft folder. If you have never used Schematica before, and you actually eye your folders, then you should notice that a schematics folder just appeared. And this is really just a whole list of schematics for every one of your schematics. See, the house one we just made is right here. If you want to go ahead and share this to your friends, and let me just cut to our Discord, a little bit of a shameless plug here, you can do that. If you want to send a house schematic, then there you go. Now everybody on the Discord can download my schematic for a house, and that's completely fine. If you don't personally use Discord, no big deal. I'm sure that works on Skype or whatever. You can upload these to MediaFire. These files are yours to share, and they're usually extremely small. So if for whatever reason you wanted to take it to the next level and edit your schematics folder, there you go. So let's hop back on the ground here and pull up my example of the furnace array. So I just hit the I just hit my divide key on my number pad. That's why I say to open up your controls, because not everybody has a number pad. It might be on the top of your keyboard or whatever. Just find that key. You should be able to select a schematic file. Select it there. And if you want to do settings, for me it's subtract, where I can just open this up and I can move the schematic up and down, I can move it left and right, and you can do a number of different things. So I found something a while back, and this is learning from experience here. Schematica does have a bunch of these settings. So what I found to be interesting was that it has a render distance setting. Me being on a slightly overpowered machine was like, oh yeah, let's bump that up to 16. But I found that when I had 16 render distance on schematics that were very, very big, moving them up and down took a lot of time. So if you see that it doesn't load completely while you're moving it up and down, you might want to consider changing it down to even like 4 or 5. Now the rendering will be different, but if you go and change it, it should, load a lot faster. So it all depends on what your PC specs are. For me, the default 8 is completely fine. Oh, you know what? I changed it to 4 and I never hit done. Hitting done is incredibly important. So let's just try and see what that looks like now. Yeah, so it loads the same, but it's a lot less laggy to play on. And that, of course, completely depends on your PC specs and what's good for you. Now, these are also completely subjective. The alpha is how transparent the blocks are. This is kind of an arbitrary amount. I just move it somewhere in here. Alpha enabled will make it like more transparent. If I disable that, you should see that the blocks are completely not see-through. It looks like this redstone block is a little blue, but completely here. And this is kind of kind of freaks me out. Can freak you out, especially as like a new user to this, where you might jump onto the block and fall right through. We've all done it. Don't feel embarrassed. I like to enable it just a little bit so you can see through it. This definitely helps when you have had a large amount of it already built up and you don't know exactly what's real and what's still in the schematic. So that's something to consider. So that's mostly rendering out of the way. The arrow keys that I mentioned earlier are really great for on the fly moving the schematic. So I showed the layers earlier. Well, now just with a hotkey I can just hit my left and right arrows and move it up and down as I'm working. This is incredibly useful when playing because you don't want to keep wanting to open this menu and freeze your game every time. If you're on a server it won't actually freeze you, but in single player that can be kind of a pain. Alright, let's move on to everybody's favorite hot topic, because this is debatably survival mode, blah 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 blah. I think this is okay, and it's completely dependent on whoever is in control of your server, whether or not this is allowed, who decides whether it's okay or not. On Minerva we use this for like grindy tasks, and it's printing. So what printing does is it lets you it's Schematica's way of placing the blocks for you. So let me just go back to these mod option settings here, go to the printer mode settings and show you what I've got set. I'm not going to show you it by default because I don't actually remember. You know what? Let's show it by default. Yeah. Hotbar slots, I actually like to keep these just to these certain spots because in survival mode that keeps it out of my food and everything. But printer, basically when you enable it, when printer is on and you're in proximity, it'll place the items from your inventory. So why I think this is okay for survival is because it just kind of makes a grindy task of the build a little bit easier. In this case, for placing ice, it's just kind of a nicety. On Minerva, where we're placing about 4.3 million items of 2 different types, printing is invaluable, and let's show you the next layer as to why. So what I'm actually going to do here is a little bit tricky. This is where you can take printing to the next level. Remove placement delay. Place only adjacent, I enable this as true, otherwise you'll get floating items. Place instantly, true, and then timeout, I don't know what that is. Placement distance, you want to leave that to the maximum so that it hits as much as it can. Let's actually get to the biggest layer oh, you know what, that's actually moving the whole schematic. Let's set that back down to 1, and then show you kind of the whole, let's show the big layer. So let's get the layer with the furnaces. Alright, so for this layer, I actually printed this in my tutorial, but when you print it, you can basically just do this, and it is so much faster than normal. You can place all of these furnaces, and anybody who's played Minecraft before knows exactly what I'm talking about when I say that hoppers are kind of a pain to place, because you have to hold shift to get them in just the right spot. Well, with printer you can do it just like this. And I'm not going to show this whole thing, but you kind of get the idea how this can be a little bit controversial, but it's insanely useful if the community you're a part of is okay with it. And I think that just about actually covers everything. I spent a little bit of time on printer there, but yeah, you also have a materials list, but most of everything on from here is pretty intuitive. I mean, you guys can kind of figure out the rest of this on your own. This is a little bit of just the preliminary setup where you can go to the controls, you can change whatever you want. Obviously, you can head to mod options, and then you have even further control over what kind of settings they have here. And I showed you how to install it. So if this tutorial has been useful, then you can go to my channel where I don't have any others like it. I only show Schematica because it's so heavily used on our server Minerva that I figured it's finally time that we give people a reference for this. And if I've been mentioning Minerva and that means nothing to you, then you should definitely check out my channel, because that will make a lot more sense a lot quicker, and why our builds kind of require this kind of thing, because, well, we kind of take it to the next level. This 1280 furnace array is actually built in our survival world, and I have videos on my channel about that exact discussion, and I might even link a couple in the description below for you guys to check out. Yeah, so subscribe if you haven't, and thanks for watching.